591 billion. That is quite a large number. Astounding, in fact. Only 23 countries have a GDP larger than 591 billion. What does that number represent? Well, it's not the GDP of a country, nor the amount of money Taylor Swift will make touring this year. It's not how much I spent at Disney World last year, though close. Nor does it relate to debt of any kind. So what is that number? Per Gartner, 591 billion is the projected global cloud spend on public cloud in 2023. A VP at Gartner stated, cloud computing will continue to be a bastion of safety and innovation, supporting growth during uncertain times due to its agile, elastic, and scalable nature. Personally, through my role in providing technical talent and technical solutions to companies large and small, I'm a witness to these uncertain times, yet also a witness to how organizations are increasing efficiency, savings, and greater output through their investment in cloud. Good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you're at. My name is Harold Zeichner. I'm the Managing Director, North Carolina, for Seneca Resources. Seneca is the host and sponsor of our cloud discussion today. This panel discussion is part of our professional series at Seneca. Technical discussions we host with industry leaders in topics like data analytics, cybersecurity, automation, technology leadership, and wait for it, of course, cloud. In a few moments, our highly acclaimed panelists will introduce themselves and share a bit about their background in cloud computing. We will cover a variety of topics related to hybrid cloud. I encourage those in attendance to be engaged. You can ask questions of our panelists using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We will do our best to get to your questions. Additionally, for those in the audience, please use the chat feature to introduce yourself and where you are from. We would love to collaborate during and after this discussion. I mentioned the company I am proud to work for, Seneca Resources, is sponsoring our discussion this morning. Since 2010, Seneca has provided highly skilled technical talent and solutions to our clients. We have a team of subject matter experts in technology, engineering, operations, government services, and the financial sector. Hardworking, sincere, problem-solving, ethical. Those are just a few of the ways I would describe our team. I may have a tad bit of bias, having been in the staffing industry for over 15 years, though I can say this is an incredible organization to partner with. If you are new to us, let us show you the Seneca way. Before we begin, a few announcements. We'll be recording this session and we'll share content from today's talk in the coming days. Also, if you have ideas on topics for future technical discussions, please let us know. You can share with your Seneca Resources contact, or let's ensure we connect on LinkedIn. I think the time has arrived for us to kick off our discussion. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to take a moment or two to introduce themselves, the company they work for, and a bit about their background. I'd like to start with my good friend, Arthur Fidd. Good morning, Art, or good afternoon, Art.
Hey, good afternoon. How you doing, Harold?
Doing great. I'm excited you're here. I appreciate you carving out time at this incredibly busy juncture for your business, Mother's Day in the jewelry business. So,
you bet. So, hello everyone. I'm Arthur Fidd. I'm the Chief Information Officer at Reed's Jewelers and Reeds.com. We are a luxury retailer of diamonds and high-end jewelry products. We operate a digital brand, Reeds.com, as well as 89 stores across the United States. And we recently launched our international business. As far as cloud is concerned, in trying to create an omni-channel experience, which at Reeds, we call it our Jewel Tech framework, not to be confused with FinTech. We realized that it was more effective and more efficient for us to leverage the expertise of third-party providers of really cool technology stuff that we could use to transform the way you retail luxury jewelry. And so our ecosystem is comprised of a number of service providers who are delivering a service in a cloud construct. And so 90% of my infrastructure is cloud based, and we are essentially a hybrid cloud framework.
Wonderful. Arthur, we look forward to hearing more about that. We are happy to hear about the invention of Jewel Tech, which we're starting to learn more about. And I know for many of us, we think of a great company like Reed's. Our mind doesn't necessarily go to cloud, but it's going to be wonderful to hear examples of how you guys are leveraging that for efficiencies and improvements in your business. So
You bet.
appreciate it, Art. All right, we're going to move along to Mr. Jerry Tillman. Good morning, Jerry, or good afternoon. I'm getting my timing confused.
Just say hello. Hello works.
Hello is much easier.
Happy to be here. My name is Jerry Tillman. I'm the Vice President of IBM Cloud's Platform Services. I'm the head of engineering for our PaaS, or Platform as a Service portfolio. I lead a global team responsible for all the revenue generating services on that platform. That includes our dev and data services, such as our containers offering, as well as our Red Hat on Kubernetes offering, and as well as our database offering that's on cloud. A lot of things that are happening in the regulated space. So that also includes the FS Cloud, which has been making rounds as it relates to, as we sort of move towards a regulated industry, around how do we make sure we're doing security and compliance properly worldwide. Each geo has their own compliance offerings and their own standards that we have to make sure we adhere to. And how do we sort of centralize that into something that is useful and makes our clients feel safe? So happy to be here to have this discussion. I have questions just as much as answers. I think Harold knows that. I love to have interactive discussions, and just looking really forward to spending time with my esteemed colleagues here on the panel and also with the audience here.
Wonderful, Jerry. We appreciate you being here. If you've got questions, you know certainly to direct them to our panel, not me. Though I can try to share some cloud knowledge with the folks. But in all sincerity, thank you. We're excited to hear, certainly a company of IBM size, how you guys are leveraging your offerings and in the areas of security, of compliance, as you mentioned, of different geos, as you mentioned as well. So I know that's going to be appealing for our audience. So thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
All right. Michelle, hello, Michelle. I said I would say hello. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Hi, Harold. I'm doing well, thank you. I'm Michelle Peck. I am a technology leader by trade and a philanthropist at heart. The intersection of those two led me to my current role at Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, which is a healthcare insurance provider. I lead the enterprise architecture group, and as part of that role, I drive our strategy around public cloud. We started our journey in 2016, dabbling a little bit in the data and analytics space, as well as creating a couple of custom applications. In 2021, we took a pivot and really put the gas pedal down to really adopt some of the public cloud offerings that are there. So I'm really glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And I've had the luxury of being on a couple different panels with you. So I'm excited for the audience to hear your insight, and certainly to hear how Blue is doing things, and love the philanthropist at heart. So appreciate you sharing that with us as well. All right, so we've got, by my count, we've got technology, we've got retail, we've got insurance. If only we had a large consulting organization that could share some of their viewpoints with us. Ryan. Hey, good morning, Ryan.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Yourself?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on. My name is Ryan Hunt. I am a director in Accenture's Cloud First practice, and my focus is on cloud and infrastructure engineering and transformation. My background with Accenture, over 20 years of experience working with many different Fortune 500 company, industry across different industries. Really help them with their cloud strategies, right? And improve the quality, the performance, answer those questions, because there are a lot of them, right? There's a lot of them. So My background, I have experience also across really kind of the full spectrum of enterprise applications, both applications to be deployed on-prem as well as in the cloud, which we'll get into talking about some of the differences there. So excited to be here, excited to have this discussion and learn from others.
Ryan, thank you. We're excited to hear your perspective. You and I have known each other for quite some time. So again, like all of our panelists, I know our audience is going to be rewarded just from hearing your thoughts and ideas and successes in this space. To make it simple for me, because I need simplicity, we're going to stay with you, Ryan, and would love for you to just share with our audience what is and what is not hybrid cloud.
All right. So the ultimate question, and I think this could get into a philosophical debate with many folks, and I certainly have had them with my clients. But as we know, the boundaries between public and private clouds blurring, and as cloud gets more mature, it gets more complex. There's more options, and there are a lot of questions around what is hybrid cloud and what is not. Initially, early on in the cloud days, as companies were quickly trying to move to public cloud, hybrid cloud was kind of initially defined as, having capabilities both, on premise and a private cloud, and having some public cloud capabilities. But today, as things have matured, a real hybrid cloud is not just about having those multiple environments, right? Of on-premise, private cloud, whether the private cloud is on-premise at the client's location, or even if it's in a third-party hosting facility, right? And public cloud. It's really about bringing all of those environments together with a unified capability of provisioning and operating and managing those environments, so that you can really allow application and data and other things, the mobility to move across the various platforms in a consistent manner, right? That shows, less impact to the end user or the business outcome, but it allows organizations, and we'll get into some of the benefits and challenges, but it allows organizations to find ways to, have that, or solve that problem around one size fits all, right? It's, early in the beginning, public cloud was being pushed quite a bit. I know our own, Accenture, that was a big storyline, and over time, as we've matured, we've changed that. But I want people to think about hybrid cloud. It's going to be a little different for every company, I think, but it really is about bringing those platforms together with a unified capability, to reduce some of the complexities in how you manage, you operate, you provision your environments, etc.
Wonderful, Ryan. I appreciate your thoughts on that. And, I know, for our audience, we hear things like hybrid cloud often. There's different definitions of that. I know we've got a few follow-up questions for some of our panelists. Wanted to see if anyone else wanted to interject a little bit of thoughts on that, as far as their view of hybrid cloud.
For me, I think he summed it up well. IBM, we started our cloud journey around 2014, 2015. I was fortunate enough to be around for that whole roller coaster that Ryan was talking about. And it was sort of, you had your public cloud instance, and then, your multi-cloud or distributed cloud or even hybrid cloud was sort of private to that particular company that you were dealing with. And that sort of evolved over time, and it became more about the PaaS and SaaS offerings on the cloud, and how do you get those offerings to the client, and how do you distribute that in a safe way, without keeping the performance and keeping the quality of your what would be on-prem SaaS or PaaS service to the client. And that wasn't always there in the first or second incarnations of public cloud or private cloud. So Ryan pretty much in my estimation nailed it, because that was exactly IBM's journey, when it was Bluemix, and then when it came to sort of Bluemix public, Bluemix private, and then sort of what it is today around being able to sort of carve out a lane or have a distributed cloud model, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So I think Ryan summed it up pretty nicely. It mirrors a lot of IBM's journey as well.
Wonderful. Jerry, appreciate that perspective, from an industry leader like IBM. I know we've got a few other things to move on to. Wanted to see if anyone else had anything they wanted to add on to Ryan and to Jerry's thoughts. Michelle's like, I'm ready for another question. Let's keep this train rolling. You were thinking that, I presume. Michelle, though, we do want to get your thoughts now that we have defined hybrid cloud. What criteria goes into the cloud decision-making process?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it differs between companies. Just for context, for us in the hybrid land, we have private cloud through a third party and a single public cloud, just to give you our definition or how we fill into the definitions that Ryan presented. And the criteria were always interesting because everybody comes at it looking at it from different points of the elephant, as the old saying goes. But we look at 5 things in particular. We look at speed and agility. We look at competitiveness. We look at operational maturity and stability. We always look at security. And we look at cost savings or cost effectiveness. And those are not listed in any particular order. And we try to take a practical approach when we're applying these criteria to our decision making. So, for example, we might find an opportunity where moving something to the public cloud gives us great competitive advantage. But when we really dig into it, the cost to run it, the need to hire people, the amount of project funding we would need to be able to spin the thing up actually becomes cost prohibitive for now. As the technologies evolve, as we gain more skill sets within our organization, that opportunity from a business case perspective actually makes more sense. So we've actually come up with the tagline, public cloud first, but not public cloud only, to try to convey the message to not only our business and IT partners, but to those that are interested in just, let's move everything to the cloud. So we try to use those criteria, and I'd be interested to hear what some of the other panel members use for their criteria as well.
Hi, Michelle. Arthur here. Yeah, I support your 5-point framework. Uh, we end up doing the same thing, but in our case, it's motivated by a need to innovate and a need to compete. And my decision was to first determine what's our core competency here at Reeds. And we didn't see a value proposition in running data centers and running infrastructure. We're pretty good at diamonds and jewelry and things of that nature. And so I decided that in an effort to really compete, I needed to partner with service providers. They're all in the cloud. And so we organically moved in that direction. And then, of course, we evaluate each of these providers along those same five points. One case in point is, we've run the business for years on an AS400. And if you know where Wilmington sits, we sit in the path of most every hurricane that comes through during the hurricane season. And so from a risk standpoint, we needed to remove that major risk because it's our core platform. And I wondered, where on earth am I going to find AS400 as a service? And believe it or not, and I think that's where all the people who worked on the IBM AS400 went when they left IBM. There's actually a company in Dallas that actually offers the AS400 as a service. And by virtue of needing to mitigate this risk, we ended up moving onto that cloud platform and integrated it back into our e-commerce platform, which sits in Rackspace, which is another cloud environment. That's just one example. We've got about 8 different variations of things that we've put out there, and I'd be happy to share more. But we do follow your approach, Michelle. I think it's fantastic.
Great.
Wonderful. Art, I appreciate you sharing a little bit of that journey and how you evaluate as well in your strategy at Reeds. Michelle, just one follow-up question before we move the conversation along a little bit. I heard you say that those 5 criteria you use are in no particular order. But is there any more weight given to them, or do you just really view everything on a case by case basis? Certainly, security of those 5 is vastly important when you're talking about public data. But was curious if there was any weight given to any of that.
Yeah, it's a good question. We focus on our members. We are a not-for-profit company, so we focus on our members and our providers. So we kind of bob and weave a little bit through the criteria, depending on what is being brought to the table and how it's going to impact our end customers. So it does vary depending on what's coming forward.
Perfect. No, I appreciate you sharing that. I think what I'm hearing from everyone is, we need cloud isn't just we go cloud, right? Everything needs to be weighed and measured, and there's that business value that needs to be determined, the security of things, and just for everyone here, just to hear that there's different strategies and different mechanisms used in making that hybrid cloud decision is wonderful. We're going to stay with you a bit, and then we can have our panel add on as well. But you touched on a little bit in your follow-up to Michelle, but as far as your cloud strategy, how does that affect your go-to-market strategy?
Oh, I mean, we're on turbocharge here. The ability for us to get this crazy idea that we can, we could extend our brand globally and pull that together in less than 12 months is a direct function of the ecosystem where we're doing a lot of the international processing in a cloud from a service provider who provides a gateway platform that we tie reads.com into when the shopper happens to live in France or Germany or Singapore. In fact, we just got an order from Australia recently. So it's really made us quite nimble, and it has allowed us to open new markets because it is cost effective and it requires less capital startup than it otherwise would have if I had to go and try to create physical plant in another country, as a quick example. So it's really enhanced our ability to compete, to be innovative and creative.
Yeah, it sounds like certainly it is that competitive advantage. There's options for those that go to reads, but being able to deliver quicker from a more secure standpoint. We all know what a great product you have there, but in this day and age, it sounds like cloud is really, like, it's just your words, turbo. It's turbocharged.
We are.
There. That's wonderful. I know as far as a go-to-market strategy, Ryan, Jerry, you see customers as well. Didn't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that. Might be a unique proposition to what Art's doing, but certainly wanted to see if any of our panel had thoughts.
No, certainly. I think it's a very common case, whether it's a go-to-market selling a product or whether it ends up being a service that customers go to when their power's out, right, and have a website that they can check on the status. The idea of having that capability, the uptime and responsiveness as even seasonal, right, things go. I'm sure with Art having that seasonal time when business spikes, you can scale in these environments. And that gives you the ability to meet the demand because people will quickly go somewhere else if they can't seem to move forward. And with our attention spans these days, it happens pretty quickly. I've seen clients where their core website in the power industry, where if a power goes out, people go to check on their status, and they get such a rush of people hitting that site that their legacy environment supporting them just could not handle it. So they've gone to more of a mixed environment where they have the capability of scaling up and ensuring when a hurricane comes, as Art mentioned, right, people can still access those sites and get vital information.
Yeah, Ryan, again, appreciate the perspective that you shared there. Jerry, I'm going to come to you in a second. With some of the customer-facing stuff that you see as well. Anything you wanted to add on go-to-market strategy, or is it at the point you get involved, you're already there?
So, okay, all right. So I think that it really comes down to the ease of how do you get what you need to the client, which has always been there since the dawn of sales. I think those of us that have been around when everything was on-prem, each geo has a different need. They have a different client base, which has a different what it is that they want, what it is that they prefer. And then there's someone that's in sales or marketing that sort of gets all that information, and then we determine how much we want to spend to create that in the different geos, whether it's Asia Pac or EU or North America. I think what we're seeing in the cloud space is it makes that a lot easier to get things to the consumer, to get whatever PaaS or SaaS services that they need at scale to the consumer, versus having to have a data center and build that data center, and then also build the product there just to find out that this particular client base only wants 10% of it. And then what do you do with the rest of the infra costs? So when you're able to now have sort of a centralized, you can have your multi-zone regions or single zone regions. So you're paying for that piece. But a lot of it is, that particular service is being spun up to be offered to that client, at scale for as much as they need to, so they can run their business or conduct whatever they need. So having sort of lived on both sides, I mean, before the cloud space, I spent a lot of time in storage. So I know a little bit about the AS400 journey. I worked on the DS6 and 8000 mid-range for Sharks. So I know how expensive that is to stand those things up and build. Now, we're in a space now with hybrid cloud where there's going to be certain pieces that certain clients are going to say, no, I want to go in my data center. I want to go in my closet and I want to look and I want to see the LEDs on all of the switches and all of my disks and make sure that my stuff is stored there. But maybe something like analytics that they can save on infra cost or save on, OpEx costs, they could probably run that on the cloud. And now it sort of offers that option for those looking to be more efficient.
Yeah, wonderful, Jerry. I appreciate you sharing some additional perspective there. I'm going to put our panel on alert because I just got a text message. I'm going to have this technology leader remain nameless because he cannot use Zoom chat due to some restrictions at his organization. But this person asked me, what is the biggest challenge in trying to bridge public and private cloud? He was, I guess I just let some of the cat out of the bag. He was thinking identity and access management, but for our panel, would love to get your thoughts on what that challenge is in trying to bring together both public and private cloud.
I think one of the things that you want to be aware of is who's accountable for your service level goals. And for us, we had to learn to trust those partners that we're going to ask to play a role in delivering on our SLA. So for example, you move your core ERP platform from your locally managed and hosted environment, and you put it in this AS400 as a service provider. And then you move your e-commerce environment from your on-premises data center and you put it in Rackspace. Well, Rackspace needs to talk to this AS400, but your customers don't want to hear that the AS400 data center is down, and they don't want to hear anything about Rackspace being down. So they're holding me accountable for a service level agreement that says checkout is going to be anywhere between 4 to 6 seconds average every time. So letting your partner understand that they have a shared accountability to all of those claims you're making to your customers is critically important, but it's not an easy hurdle to get over because it's trying to bring together all of these vendors and let them understand that, like you, in my case, the CIO, they too are going to be held accountable for the performance gains claims that we've put out there. So I would say to the person who raised the question, that was one of the bigger bumps that we had to get over, and we're well beyond it now. But you should watch out for that.
Wonderful, Art, and I think the idea of shared accountability, it could probably be another panel discussion in its own right. But I did see
Sure
a lot of it sure can, right? I did see a lot of head nods when Art was talking about that bridge between public and private cloud. Wanted to see if anyone else wanted to weigh in on that before we moved on.
Yeah, definitely. For me, one of the things I see quite a bit with my clients is the tooling, the ability to bring together those hybrid cloud environments. And what a lot of clients I've seen end up with is, they've got these different environments and they have as many tools to monitor, to automate, to provision, as they do environments, right? And so you really end up creating a very complex environment, and different tools you have to go to. So I see the challenge, and I mentioned this later on, is really that integration. How do you find those right tools that, certainly tied to a business case, capabilities, your SLAs you need to meet, but really help you bring those environments together to efficiently manage them and not create more complexity and headache for the rest of your staff.
Yeah, I would add, being in a regulated industry, protecting your data, especially as you start to move it to and fro between a hybrid environment, that security of that data is paramount, right? We have to protect PHI, HIPAA data, and all that kind of stuff. So that is absolutely critical to keep your eye on.
Mm-hmm.
In instances like that, Michelle, does that fall back on your security organization? Is there a partnership there, or as you're building cloud organizations and bringing on cloud engineers, does everyone have a part in security?
Yeah, it's everyone's responsibility. Security, engineering, development, architecture, we're all in the game, right? We have to protect our members' data for sure.
Absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that perspective. As we're talking about a few of these different areas, again, I want to encourage our audience. Let's make this as interactive as we can make a virtual panel. So enjoyed getting a text message. Fortunately, I caught that, but please go ahead and share your questions. We got a great panel here who's eager to answer them. While we're waiting on some other questions from our audience, definitely want to continue to move forward. And Jerry, we're going to kick it back to you. We touched on hybrid cloud, and I think we were starting to go down the road a little bit about multiple clouds. But when running multiple clouds, how does that affect the operators of those teams?
Multiple ways, and I've had to live it. I have the scars to prove it. But I would kind of sum it up in maybe 4 categories. The first one, I believe Ryan just touched on, is sort of your operational expense, your OpEx. The ones that are doing the incident management and the ones that are responsible for maintaining and the stability of the service are now having to look at multiple panes of glass. So it's almost like just when we got to a point from a public cloud perspective that you had the right tooling, you had the right monitoring, alerting, and all of that. Now the business says, hey, I want to utilize a feature or set of features on another cloud to attack some sort of business or whatever it is they need. They have a different set of tools. They have a different UI. They have a different, everything. So now you have to deal with that. So the second piece is the user interface. Google, IBM, AWS, as you name it, they all have different. There's no standardization yet around the user interface, and he or she that can bring those things together and centralize that will probably launch another wave and make sort of the hybrid cloud, multi-cloud strategy easier for clients. The third one Michelle touched on is the security concerns. If we just look in general, the rise in what we're doing for sovereignty, what we're doing around compliance And it varies across not only the different CSPs, it varies on if you're using open source, if you're using third party, and this whole we're all in this together thing that Arthur was talking about, because now those things matter. These clients want that. And it's not just, it started out just regulated, but now just giving how things are happening in the world, a lot of any type of client, a public cloud client, is now starting to have those expectations around, okay, what are you doing to protect my data? You know, what's your relationship with this vendor? What's your relationship with this third party? I signed the SLA or SLO with you. I have this expectation of you. And then that gave birth to single zone regions versus multi-zone. Now you're starting to hear about dedicated MZRs that, you know, some of the bigger clients are wanting to use to make sure that it's within their possession and those sorts of things. And then the last one is tools. If you're an SRE, your job is to monitor, you're monitoring a service or a set of services or the platform or whatever part of the stack that you're responsible for, or you might be responsible for the entire stack, whether it's DevOps, SRE, or otherwise. And every CSP may have a different set of tools. And now you have multiple panes of glass. You're doing share switching, except in a different way, as opposed to, you know, looking at incidents and then working those incidents or working with development or back end. Now you have multiple panes of glass where you have logging here. You may use Grafana for this. You may use sysdig for that. You may use, you know, Mesmo for this. You may use New Relic for that. And each one is different in how they integrate. So I think that has been the current headache, if you want to call it that, with the multi-cloud, hybrid cloud strategies around how do we efficiently make sure that our incident managers and the ones that are protecting our services and protecting our platform, how are we making sure that it's easy for them to do that? And I think that's the current challenge from an operational perspective.
Yeah, you know, I'm trying to think of formulating a question around that headache, right? You mentioned tools, and there's so many different tools out there. I'm sure each of you as leaders get hit up about tools and the shiny new stuff, but you know, Art, look at Art smiling. Art's like, yeah, all the time. They won't leave me alone, will they? I see everyone smiling now. So, but you know, you've got that headache. How do we go about solving some of that challenge? You know, kind of an open forum question to see if anyone's got some thoughts on that.
Sure. I mean, I can tell you that, and this is agnostic to whether it's cloud or hybrid cloud or anything. Quite frankly, it's, in our case, we're changing out an ERP infrastructure, right? It's just lots of different applications, and I'm moving from the one monolithic, big, huge platform that does everything, and moving us to best of breed sort of approach, which means we're gonna have to have all these kids play nicely with each other in the playground. And so my approach is to, during the RFP process where we're evaluating vendors, is to ensure that they are API first in their architecture. Because if they can get through that first gate, then it would suggest then that the ability to integrate these things will be that much more seamless, simpler. And that will then create this oneification of the architecture, even though there are different platforms running in different clouds. So my approach of solving that is part of the evaluation process, and to stipulate an API first architecture with all of the vendors with whom we're going to do business.
Art, appreciate you sharing your perspective there. You know, I think as we're, you know, having these discussions and more, I feel like we could just touch on this subject for quite some time. But Ryan, I do want to kick it back to you. We've defined hybrid cloud. We've talked a bit about strategy, certainly. Art and Jerry, you know, talked about, you know, some of the headaches that can come and how we go about resolving those. So we'll love to get just a couple thoughts from you, Ryan, on benefits and challenges from your perspective. Certainly, you know, the nature of your role working at a large consulting organization, you've probably seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll just take a little bit of the good, a little bit of the bad, a little bit of the bad.
So definitely, and I think we've heard a lot about some of them as we've talked here about strategy and going forward. And I think, obviously speed and agility is a benefit. Being able to scale, utilizing, public cloud scaling capabilities to augment your private cloud environments are certainly benefits. I think, as I kind of mentioned earlier, the one size fits all that, we all kind of initially in cloud, we found that that's not the case. And, the benefit of a true hybrid cloud gives you those abilities to really have more deployment options, right? And it can also help you drive more value out of your infrastructure capital purchases. So things you have on premise, you can help kind of drive some more value out of them. I think from the challenges is some of the things we've heard as well. Investment, that's a big one we see with clients in the integration of those platforms, right? And getting the right tooling in place to help ease the management of those multi-cloud environments, because it can get very complex in that scenario, as we've heard. I think another piece that is a challenge that kind of adds to this is around how the organizations operate, the IT organization's operating model, right? And what we kind of refer to and talk to a lot of clients about around their cloud operating model and how those integrate with normal everyday operational aspects. Having a hybrid cloud, you have a lot of silos of parts of the organizations that own different pieces of it. So looking at the model and how groups work together on bringing these solutions together, so that it's really a unified platform that you can take advantage of any of the capabilities to drive value and cost, the speed, agility, et cetera, that you want. Also tend to see areas where there's a lot of legacy applications that really don't have the ability to support some of those capabilities. So you're faced with, what do we do to modernize those prior to, and do we modernize them to more of an on-premise type application, or do we really go and be innovative and take it to microservices or other serverless type technologies that are out there? And so some of the things, I will say, while security and data sovereignty are some of the challenges, there also can be a benefit in the hybrid cloud and how you have it structured. I have worked with several clients in heavily regulated utilities to aerospace and defense, and the CISOs and their comfort level with public cloud. It really depends on the organization and their security posture and what they need to meet requirements. But the proper hybrid cloud and having an on-premise environment that's locked down as it can be, solves some of that concern.
Yeah. Ryan, no, thank you. I think, again, excellent points on some of the things that are critical when you're looking at hybrid cloud. There are vast benefits. There's some other things that you just need to watch out for, right? And be ready to solve. So one thing I want to say too to the audience, in the event I forget towards the end of this discussion, please connect with our panelists. I know each of them and their excitement about connecting with the cloud and technical community. So the goal of these discussions is not just today. We want to foster this type of conversation and collaboration moving forward. So wanted to mention that. I'm going to go back to Michelle right now on a question that I cannot wait to hear the answer to. I think the psychology of people and different thoughts really resonate with me, and I know our audience as well. So Michelle, we've talked, and you have the belief, as many of the leaders on this panel and in tech do, that the technology piece is easy. I'm sure some of us can shake our heads there from time to time. Maybe it's not as easy, but relatively speaking, it is. However, changing mindsets is where the real work comes in, right? I'd love for you to elaborate a little bit more about that.
Yeah, there's a famous saying out there that says culture eats technology for lunch. And in the cloud space, that's definitely true as well. So The thing that's key in our organization is making sure that our business and IT stakeholders have engagement along the journey, as well as buy-in when we make decisions. So in our case, we have two extremes and then some in the middle. At one end, we have our traditional data center teams, and they're all about, well, let's just stay status quo. Why do we need to change? And some of that comes from fear of change in general. It might be from they think they're going to lose their jobs. That we get a lot of oh, it'll never work kind of concepts from some of our teams. At the other extreme, we have some public cloud evangelists. They're like, we should absolutely put everything in the cloud. Just do it. Don't worry about the money. Just get it there because it's exciting, and we have lots of possibilities that we can provide to our members. There's obviously a middle ground for most people, most companies. So one of the things we did was try to provide some education and some innovation sessions, if you will, to kind of get people together to talk about different points of view and really bring forward where we wanted to go as a company from a vision and a direction, and then actually acknowledge individual perspectives as we went on that journey. That helped a lot with changing some of the mindsets. Peers work together on both sides of the house, both extremes I described, to really get each other up to speed and gain some understanding for what we wanted to do and the best way to go about that. We also implemented some professional development for IT teams in particular that help bridge the gap of I'm going to lose my job to, hey, here's some new skill sets that you can use. And you've got a great foundation to build on it based on what you do today. And we'd love you to come along the journey with us and learn something new. Communication was also really key. We had to communicate about what it is we were doing it, why we were doing it, how we were going to have a positive impact, how we were going to make healthcare better for all, which is our mission, and really getting people into the mode of this is the right thing to do and here's how I'm going to contribute. We started small, the crawl, walk, run approach to really help cement some of that mindset. And it seemed to really take hold. And as we brought people along on the journey, we're seeing more and more progress every day.
Michelle, that's wonderful. And it sounds like it's not easy, but like most things, communication is key, right? And it's one thing to just go to a new technology solution, right? Most of us get excited about new technology and the latest and greatest, but the ability to be effective and efficient and have high performing teams can be lost if you don't have that communication. So we're all in a pretty fast paced environment these days. So it sounds like let's just not lose sight of how vital it is to be effective communicators. And anyone wanted to add on? I don't know how we taught Michelle. I wouldn't want to follow her right now.
I can tell you spot on. I think just spot on. I run into it in a lot of transformation programs I go to for clients, and they haven't quite mastered that communication, the change management, how they're going to train people, right? Help those that want to really get into new technologies and innovation, have the right talent structures within the organization. So we see companies that we really have to sit down with them and help them. What are the types of roles? What are the role descriptions you need to support those? And how do you help those that want to expand and grow get into those right tracks, right? And there's always, with the mixture of environments and most clients, you people can focus on what they feel they're going to be successful in, but having the proper talent structure, the proper change communications, they're all critical. And she's spot on. I always see the extremes, one extreme to the other.
I appreciate you sharing that perspective as well. It sounds like it's pretty easy to find talent into this space, right? Maybe I'm just doing a little bit of a plug there. As a host, I get to do that once in a while. We can certainly help with strategy, solutions, and talent in these spaces, as some of you may know already. But would love to continue the conversation on. But I know we've only got about 5 to 7 minutes left. We're running out of time because you guys are so engaging. Appreciate the thoughts and perspective. Art, I'm going to go back to you, my friend. When thinking about an organization at large, can you share your thoughts on capacity planning and the use of cloud?
Yeah, I mean that we could spend a week on this, right?
Let's do
Um,
it.
you know, you can't have a cloud strategy in a vacuum, right? I give you an example. You know, if I have all of my service providers offering their services on Azure or some other cloud or their own private cloud, and then I have the CCPA, the California Consumer Protection Act, and GDPR, it allows and affords our customers to go to the website and say, I'd like to be removed, right? And so the question is, well, now what do you do? How do you audit? How do you control that? And by the way, the CCPA that gives you 40 days to comply. Organizationally, you have to consider how are you going to either introduce new responsibilities and new accountabilities. So, for example, in my team, my one of my directors has that data management responsibility to govern any request to be anonymized and then to ensure that we execute within 40 days consistent with policies and laws. So you have a physical plan to go cloud. There has to be a governance framework that you must consider in parallel.
I appreciate that. That governance. I think you said governance panel. Is that correct? In parallel, is that made up of just leaders across your tech organization? Do you bring others in the business into that? How does that look?
It's a cross-functional team, Harold, here at Reeds. It is chaired by a director in IT, but there are colleagues from our marketing team, operations team, risk team, and others. And and again, there's some hands-on tech people because we've got to go get to data in a database somewhere, and we've got to remove it or anonymize it. So it's cross-functional. And again, we've honed the process because again, when we get one of these requests, the clock starts, and so we get going, and we have an internal workflow that manages that.
Wonderful. Appreciate you just sharing on how that works in your org. Jerry, I want to squeeze one other question in with you before we move to our closing thoughts section of the event. It's not uncommon for organizations to be committed to one provider, yet wanting features and functions of another cloud provider. Any advice you can share with our audience?
Well, I think that it sort of touches on which each generation or each technology goes as it evolves. Now you're hearing about, first it was public cloud, that's where we started. Then you started hearing about private cloud. Now you're hearing about multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. Now what you're hearing is distributed cloud for those that have reached that point. And what that is just what you said. How do I say, okay, I've been with this CSP for the past X amount of years, and gone are the days of saying, hey, if I want to utilize this feature over here, I'm going to migrate everything over to this cloud just to utilize this set of features. So the distributed cloud model is what you hear about, is how do you get those features from this CSP over to this CSP so that client can use those features in a way. And IBM has a version of it. We call it IBM Satellite. And we have things like Watson and some of our DBAS features and some other pieces where we can get those features to another CSP, whether it's on AWS or Azure, so that client can access those features without having to migrate everything over to do that. Because as cloud is maturing, these clients are investing in that. You're talking IaaS costs, you're talking OpEx costs that I was talking about earlier, and they're not going to be willing to make that. And then they might not be in a position to say, okay, well, I'll just have both CSPs. They just want the feature set. They want that PaaS or that SaaS service. So, Google has one, I think it's Google Distributed Cloud. You have F5 that also does things like that. And the other pieces, it can improve your business resilience. It can also improve your disaster recovery. I think Art was talking about that earlier, where, how can you utilize that where you're not just beholden to one CSP or a set of features, especially again, as we get to security and compliance, regulated. How do you make sure you round that off? So I would say, just in the interest of time, those would be the ones. I would say distributed cloud is the new one. I would encourage everybody who doesn't know about it to kind of look that up and see, like, how do you take certain features and get that even if you're sitting on another service provider.
All right, distributed cloud. I've got my homework. I think our audience does as well. Jerry, appreciate you sharing your thoughts there. In one moment, I'm going to ask each of our panel to take 30 seconds as a little bit of a closing thought, parting shot. Take whatever words of wisdom you want to leave our audience with. But I want to thank our audience today. I know a lot of you are joining over lunch and at different times. I hope you found this valuable as I did, as we're learning a little bit more about cloud and hybrid cloud, and just a tremendous panel. I absolutely want to thank Michelle, Art, Jerry, Ryan for joining us today. Your knowledge is has been well received. The comments I'm already getting has been just wonderful. So thank you on behalf of Seneca Resources for sharing your knowledge, and certainly look forward to more thoughts. But as we have that 30-second closing shot to get us right to the top of the hour, Ryan, we'd love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's know that there's not a one size fits all. There's a lot of capabilities in cloud. It can be overwhelming for organizations, but taking the time to really understand the requirements and your cost values and how you kind of put together that cloud strategy is important, and understand that it's always going to evolve. Cloud strategy is not going to stay the same forever, and you have to be able to kind of evaluate and move to new things as the requirements and as the business change. But just because there's a lot out there, don't let it overwhelm the organizations, and you'll get to where you need to meet the requirements of your business.
Well, Ryan, thank you. So there's options out there, but be judicious in your approach, it sounds like. Michelle?
Yeah, the technology changes so fast. My recommendation, and to wrap, would be to say, try it, learn from it, pivot if you need to, and carry on. You have to just keep trying and do what's best for your organization.
Perfect. Michelle, thank you. And thank you for joining us today. Jerry?
I would say explore based on your needs, internally as well as externally. Always consider your developers, your operators, your support, all of that. Make sure you explore internally, and then also externally. What's more efficient? What will help drive business? What will help, get the needs that what you have to offer to the clients quickest and more efficient. But the fact is, all of it's out there. So now you don't have to pick from just, one or the other. Don't get overwhelmed, as some of my colleagues have said. You can't have a bit of the Walmart effect where you kind of going in and you just want a bar of soap, and then you see like 10 million options of soap, and you're trying to figure out which one to get, and we wanted to get that. But use the data that's there for you. There's a ton of history on the public cloud journey to where we are now. There's tons of things about what works, what doesn't. Utilize your team, try and buy, do a whole bunch of things. Use ChatGPT, whatever it is you need to do. But explore. Just make sure you explore internally and externally. That would be my part.
We got through almost an hour without ChatGPT mentioned. I cannot believe it in this day and age. All right, Jerry, thank you. Art, we got 30 seconds, my friend.
Maybe all of this is ChatGPT. How would you know? I would just say first, y'all should contact Michelle and get her 5-point scoring scale. I think it's fantastic. I think number 2, cloud is not an IT issue; it's a business issue, and we need to recognize that. 3, you need to consider accountability. That no matter where you put stuff, you're still accountable, and therefore you're going to have to hold these cloud providers accountable to be part of, almost as if they're part of your team. And finally, it's about understanding your core competencies, right? You don't have to own the data center to deliver value to your company. So I would say those are some of the key things you should consider if you're a CIO trying to deal with this big decision.
Wonderful. Art, thank you. We went a minute or two over. No one has to pay for that, which is exciting news for everyone. Thank you, everyone. Again, on behalf of Seneca and the audience today, wonderful conversation, and we look forward to doing this again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay well, everyone. Bye-bye.
Pleasure.